Okay. So we're technically on break, but we can't leave y'all without a little earworm for the week here.
Are we like Ross and Rachel on the break, or?
Oh, I mean, I get to be Rachel.
In your dreams, man.
What are we doing here, Daniel?
Well, I think we're a little sidetracked, wouldn't you say?
I'd say.
Yeah. So this is a big undertaking, going through 500 albums. And as we're producing these episodes, we actually need a little time for ourselves. I'm going to go into Iceland. Got some stuff going on. We have life going on. So we want to break up maybe the monotony of going through album by album by album by providing a little bit of side content. And the way we decided to do this is basically in 20 episode seasons.
Yeah, so we'll do 20 songs off of the Rolling Stones 500 Greatest Albums of All Times list, and then we take about 6 weeks off. Now, with that said, we're not actually taking them off. We're pre-preparing content for the next season, and we also get to hash out some fun ideas to kind of change it up. So inside of this gap, Daniel came up with a really fun challenge.
We did. So this one here is a challenge. I don't know what we're going to call it. We're either going to call it Convince Me.
I like Convince Me.
All right, Convince Me.
What are you convincing me of?
Well, what I'm convincing you of, well, the purpose is I'm going to give Carl an album that I don't believe he's heard before and likely never would unless he was suggested that.
Yeah, or assigned it.
Or assigned it. So I picked mine. Carl has one for me. You'll hear that in our follow-up episode. And what I've chosen for Carl is a little-known album by the band Alice Cooper, known as, the album is $1 Billion Babies, which was released in 1973.
Yeah, and so I absorbed this album from you. Mm-hmm. In earnest, I've given it about 4 whole listens. Mainly because you and I assigned each other these albums about 72 hours ago.
That's correct. And I made the differentiation, Alice Cooper, the band, because some people may know, some people may not, that Alice Cooper started as a band and had several people. And the album we're talking about is Alice Cooper, the band, which features. You
can leave your feekers out of this.
I'll leave my feaker out of it, yeah. Which features lead vocals by Vincent Furnier, who eventually changed his name legally to Alice Cooper, when you think of Alice Cooper as the individual. Glenn Buxton on lead guitar, Michael Bruce on rhythm guitar, Dennis Dunaway on bass, Neil Smith on drums.
I always just thought Alice Cooper is Alice Cooper. So thank you for the distinction. I would have never known.
Yeah, because this whole transition happened before you were even born.
Yeah. I mean, I know nothing about Alice Cooper, or I knew nothing about Alice Cooper coming in, and you were correct in your assessment. I most likely would not have gone out of my way to listen to Alice Cooper because I frankly don't like listening to clowns, and he strikes me as a clown. These guys with the makeup and the act, you're wearing a Kiss shirt right now. I know it's one of your favorite bands. And it's like, I don't take it seriously in my mind as a musician, which is hilarious because I don't take much serious, period.
Right.
But for some reason I've had this aversion and I've kind of put them in a box in my head.
Mm-hmm. And that's fair.
And, I foreshadow a little bit here, but I'm really glad to have been assigned to this album.
Yeah. So to be clear, that means that you've never delved into Gwar.
Okay, look, you leave Gwar out of this. That's way more like character casting.
Yeah, it is.
And you can, but I have a slight bias towards you even look at the way the dudes in The Cure were dressing. Even that rubs me funny, some of the overdone hairband gimmicks. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess it's a sliding scale for me. And yeah, sure, Gwar isn't an extreme of it.
Of course.
Boy, I love Gwar.
Slipknot?
I've seen them live twice or thrice over. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get you need to costume up sometimes for music. the overdone face paint, Here Comes Death. Even the Rob Zombie thing hits me wrong a little bit.
Sure.
I like Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
So,
and yes, I am wearing a Kiss shirt tonight only because I don't have an Alice Cooper shirt to wear.
I would puke.
Yeah. If I did, I would have worn that.
That would have been sick.
Yeah.
All right, continue. Sorry, I've taken us out.
So yeah, the band was known already for outrageous theatrical stage shows and shock rock stuff. And one of the things, I actually saw Alice Cooper, the individual, because I was too young to know of the band. I saw him in the 80s when he made a resurgence. And I'll be honest, Alice Cooper's music, for me, is hit or miss. He has some really good stuff and some stuff I'm like, eh. But he made a resurgence in the 80s when he wrote 2 songs for Friday the 13th Part 6.
Okay.
And because of that, he sort of came back into the limelight. So it was around that time that I actually saw him in concert. And his stage show is pretty outrageous for sure. And oddly enough, my son went to go see him last year, I think it was. He saw Alice Cooper, Rob Zombie, and Ministry.
Okay.
His friend brought him along to see it, and he ended up enjoying it because part of the theatrics of an Alice Cooper show is that he's known for having a guillotine on stage where he gets his head cut off, right? And then they walk around with his head, and while they sing, I think "I Love the Dead," maybe.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Does the head have like animatronic mouth movement?
It didn't when I saw him. I don't know if it does.
Because they could do something really funny. Anyway.
Yes, they could.
Shock rock. That's a term I've never heard before.
Yeah, and he was part of that. And you could go back to, I don't know that this fits, but like there's glam rock and shock rock, and I think Alice Cooper maybe bridge the gap there
I feel like Ozzy has to be playing that same specter a little bit too, right? Because like biting head off bat, but also pop radio, crazy trainy stuff. Like
there was a chicken incident with Alice Cooper too that was in a similar vein.
Okay,
that was, it happens when you're pretty messed up on stage, kind of thing. Not justifying it, but
this also is bringing back serious like Iggy Pop vibes.
Yep.
Yeah. There was violence in music in a sense there. So just putting it out there. I didn't live through any of these acts and see the turn, and I've only learned what I've heard between a couple other podcasts, and I tend to keep out of that. So yeah, when this landed in my lap and I saw the name, I was like, all righty.
Yeah.
We're going in.
Yeah, I thought you would have a reaction that was like, what's he doing to me? But
yeah, that's exactly right.
Yep. So this album was released in 1973. It was produced by this little-known producer by the name of Bob Ezrin. Familiar with Bob Ezrin?
Bob Ezrin, does that turn into Bob Rock later on?
He was Bob Rock before Bob Rock was Bob Rock.
Yeah, I've heard of Bob Ezrin.
Yeah, Bob Ezrin worked with Pink Floyd on The Wall.
Okay.
He worked with Kiss on their most popular album, Destroyer. He worked with Lou Reed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I do like some Lou Reed.
Yeah, so actually what's funny, I mentioned Kiss. So Bob Ezrin worked with Kiss on their album, Destroyer, it's their most famous studio album. Kiss Alive was the album that put them on the map. And then several years later, after The Wall came out, Kiss made a concept album called The Elder, which almost everybody is embarrassed by. When it came out, and I was like, I think it came out in 1981 or something like that. So I was like 9, or I was all in. Didn't bother me. Retrospectively, I understand why everyone was kind of cringed out by it.
Okay,
but Bob Ezrin did that.
You're not allowed to assign that to me, by the way.
I will not. If I give you a Kiss album, it will not be that album. I might have one teed up for you, just so you know. But one of the things that this album did, this was a follow-up to the band's previous commercial success, a song that many people know, which is School's Out, which came out in 1972. A bunch of bands have done that.
So School's Out came out before $1 Billion Babies.
1972, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's honestly, if you were like, if I'm at a show and someone throws 20 in my jar and they're like, play an Alice Cooper song, that is the only thing I would be remotely like familiar with. I would have to go to Schools Out.
Yep.
Or else that song ain't happening.
Right. Is it because you're a big Crocus fan?
Because this stupid song lives in our heads rent free, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I think a song on this album, which also lives there, is No More Mr. Nice Guy.
I like that tune.
Yeah. I hear that all the time because my son, who has a radio show, it's on college radio, and they have a PSA that runs every episode, which is against drunk driving, and Alice Cooper's doing the voiceover, and No More Mr. Nice Guy is playing. So I literally hear that song at least once a week when he does his show.
Yeah.
So that's actually the thing that reminded me, like, oh, that. And I mentioned this album on a previous episode where I talked about the song Unfinished Suite in the dental drilling that occurs in that song.
That's an uncomfortable listen.
Yeah.
It's a smart song, frankly.
Yeah.
But when that drill comes in, the first time I heard it, I was listening in the AirPods.
Yeah.
And it was like shrill, it's left ear.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I've been in that chair many, many times. I have shitty English teeth. And like, I know that sound all too well. But I do think the composition of that song specifically is really neat because it kind of follows through the path that you go in a dental visit.
And your dental journey.
Indeed.
Before we sort of get into the music of this, I just want to share to you, one of the reasons I shared this with you is this album is not a concept album, but I could turn this into a concept album in a minute.
Yes, I would take it one further and say the songs are all concept songs.
Yes.
Right? Like that dental visit. And yeah, I'm sure with some shuffling or some creative writing, one could figure out pretty quickly how to make a story out of this.
Yeah. In my mind, if you take someone who is addressing fame, you could go there.
Sure.
There's some parallels actually thematically, nowhere without the mommy issues to The Wall, actually.
Okay. I mean,
from the rock star perspective,
not hard to believe coming
Yeah.
off the same producer, coming off, the kind of, remember, concept albums were massive before they weren't.
Yeah.
And it isn't until recent we start to see them really pop up again. I mean, the last concept album I actually sat down, listened to, and feel like I enjoyed would be like, To Pimp a Butterfly.
Yeah.
And so, but you really didn't see it a lot after. I felt like kind of when the 2000s were cusping up, they really fell off. I guess like Coheed and Cambria was going hard, but no, you could make that. You could make the argument that this could be a concept album. I think, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I don't think most people would classify it as that, but I've listened to this enough times that I feel there's a thread that goes through this whole thing that
you and every other Tool fan think they can do this.
That's right.
Tool fans have a way of painting everything to a concept, but what they really meant is if you switch the first number with the last number of each track and then put them in reverse order, it's actually this concept.
And it's a palindrome.
Oh, no. All right. So what else?
That's all I got. I thought this would be something that you would not listen to. I think there's some pretty good quality songs in this, some good quality writing on this, some good performances, and sort of a diverse palette of songs as well. So I like, let's give it a shot. See what you think. The other reason I gave it to you is this is like pretty much straight ahead rock and roll with some theatrical elements to it, and it's something that's where you normally sit. So
No, you're right there. I'll tell you what. Let's take a quick break, and I will tell you all about my thoughts.
let's do it.
Hey kids, your Uncle Alice here. When I was 6, I asked Santa for a noose. When I was 10, I built my first electric chair out of electro set parts. But the guillotine, that was the dream. I remember when I first met the guillotine. It turns out no one checked the weight on the blade, and let's say, you only lean in once. But that's how you learn, isn't it? Touch a hot stove, pet the wrong snake, stick your neck into your own machine. Now your kid doesn't have to make my mistakes. They can make better ones. Introducing baby's first guillotine. It's got the blade. It's got the drama. It's got the little lever that goes ka-chunk, like destiny coming for the soft of the neck. It comes with 12 collectible heads and a tiny velvet hood for ceremonial flair. You want horror? Give them heritage. Now it's time to line up your stuffed animals and let them beg for mercy. Teddy stole cookies? Off with his head. Bunny betrayed the crown? Off with his head. Grandma knit you a sweater with a duck on it? Well, you know what to do. Comes with 12 collectible plush necks, each with a name, a backstory, and a lesson about betrayal. Because, kiddies, decapitation shouldn't just be educational, it should be fun.
Brought to you by the makers of My First Snake Pit and Creepy Crawly Communion Wafers.
Well, I know they say there's no time like the present, but this gives it a whole new meaning.
It does. And if you haven't actually, tested your own personal buoyancy, it's time to do that now.
Yeah, natural lubrication is so phenomenal if you think about it.
Yep.
All right, so we're back. Dan has kindly assigned me a listening project, which is to check out $1 Million Babies by the band Alice Cooper.
Minor correction. Add or multiply that by 1,000.
What do you mean?
$1 billion babies.
Oh, $1 billion. Yes. How I dare I think so small?
Yeah.
Billions. Zillions. He goes there.
He does.
Yes, I will keep that on tape. I don't care.
It's all right.
So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to kind of go through my overall and maybe go for a few highlights here.
Sure.
And then I'll wrap it up with kind of my overall, would I hit it type of realm. So here we go. Immediately, I was judgy, as I think I put up there earlier. I was not terribly interested in the idea of Alice Cooper. Therefore, I was not interested in the band. I also really didn't understand that the band Alice Cooper existed, not just the singer initially. And that is something I heard immediately. Mm-hmm. The song Hello Hooray that you drop in on, I was like, oh God, this is like a lot of really good instrumentation.
Yeah.
And that's how the album kicks off. It's a little silly.
Yeah.
He's a little flamboyant and over the top, and I'm not impressed by his singing per se on this song. But what you end up getting is a band that, and he's cohesive. He fits the band though.
Yeah.
They're all kind of matching this right energy, who walk through a bunch of different neat arranging styles.
Yeah.
And first track, this is not the Stooges or something that we listen to a la the time period where it just kind of trucks forward and is predictable.
Yeah.
In fact, if there's one thing this album isn't, it's predictable. And I say that in a way where I'm happy to report that.
Yeah. I hear this introduction as a combination of, I mentioned Pink Floyd The Wall,
Mm-hmm.
In the Flesh, ?
Yes.
And because it comes in fairly like that. And a bit of the introduction to Rocky Horror Picture Show.
See, I was going to mention Rocky Horror later. So
yeah.
There's a ton of parallels.
Yep.
Yet again, a thing I was forced upon me and I was not terribly fond of, but I kind of do see the brilliance and genius in now. It was just, I had this whole troupe. I think I mentioned this in one of the pods over the past season of like artsy fartsy kids in middle school.
Yep.
I was dating one of them, and the other ones were my friends enough, but they all like went really hard in on it, and they all like knew way too much about the Beatles and the Doors too soon, and they were watching Rocky Horror, and they're wearing the clothes and saying funny things, and it was like this like art too cool.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And I got stuck watching Rocky Horror a few times over, where I was just like, okay, guys, like the appeal wasn't there because it wasn't my jam.
Yeah,
but the theatrics are 100% here. And
Mm-hmm.
he's leaving that out there for better or for worse. Mm-hmm. Good tune
Mm-hmm.
on Virgin Ears. I was like, this is fine. Where I then raise my eyebrows immediately is when I'm sitting there and the next tune comes on. I look at the name and it's called Raped and Freezing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God, please don't go there. And I'm delighted to tell you it's not what you think initially.
Correct.
And him being pursued in a way, and you could say that in a physical or a mental way. There's a little bit of imagery going on. My favorite parts about the early part of this album, though, is in this tune. I like the physical song quite a bit. I think the singing's not bad.
Yeah.
The ending is fantastic. I mean, he's telling you essentially about this crazy, trip, outside of Mexico, and the Latin piece at the end really did it for me. Which makes you say, it puts a point towards your kind of concept album, concept song argument. And then they don't really give up the antics, because by the time you get into songs 3 and 4, I'm looking for a pattern or I'm looking for a style. And the only pattern I can seem to figure out is that all the guys in this band are badasses.
They are.
The players are very, very good. They're eloquent. I like the production. 73. This certainly isn't the finest produced album. No. You know what it sounds like to me? It sounds a little like the drums that you would get in like old ELO records.
Sure.
A lot of ripping guitars. The panning was used really well. The guitar tonality was surprisingly clean considering the tech available to them at times. Some of the best guitars and amps, that are most coveted now were probably used on this album, and their ability to capture them was really nice. In the third tune, Elected, which is just an absolute noise factory for me, I don't find it to be an enjoyable song, but I kind of like that. It's so loud and raucous. They got these fucking shakers going on the entire time. And the kind of marching drums, it's supposed to sound like a twisted presidential motorcade parade in my mind.
Yeah. Live when this comes out, he's on a big podium. Like,
course.
There's a whole separate set for this
Red,
song.
white, and blue, baby.
Yeah.
And I could see someone leaning into this, but what I'm highlighting here is third song in, nothing like the first two.
No, full on trombones and tubas
and this will carry through the rest of the album.
Yeah.
Twists and turns of different surprises and different things. When Marianne comes in, I'm stunned.
Yeah.
It's just, how long is that song? 2 minutes and 22 seconds. It feels like it's a minute and a half at max. Piano, I wouldn't even call it ballad, but a sweet piano song.
Almost like a ragtime kind of piano.
And he sings his ass off.
Yeah.
I was like, I like that version.
Yeah.
That Alice Cooper, please.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want a whole album of it, because then I miss out on things like Generation Landslide.
Right.
Look, you can even say the text I sent you. What did I write you?
You said the title track to this album fucks hard.
Yeah. And that is the song $1 Billion Babies. My comment to you later on the telephone would be, I bet this was the song every drummer in 73 was trying to learn, because the drum part's
awesome.
The whole song is like, it's by far and away my favorite song on the album. Only 4 listens in. If I listened to it 20 times, I'd probably creep somewhere else. But man, this song is convincing. It's a hell of a title track.
Yeah.
And I also like where it's situated as song number 4. It is powerful. The playing, it is awesome. How long is it? It is only 3 minutes and 42 seconds. So unlike Marianne, this song feels epic. It feels like a 5 or 6 minute tune.
It does. You talk about the drum part. There's the intro drum part, right? But the groove itself is actually pretty awesome too.
The drum part, it's like the whole song's a nonstop stolo. Like, it just goes. He simply just overplays the whole song, but in the best way. And the other musicians are keeping up, and they're hitting with them. You can tell these fills are well written because the guitar players are doing it with them. There's these 2-bar stops, and like, it's really, this song sold me. It got in early enough on my ears because I was kind of like, whoa, crazy song, whoa, crazy song, whoa, really ruckus song. And then this, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Now,
I agree.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I hadn't really thought about it that way. Because I knew the song Elected before I knew the album, so I was not as like shocked by the raucousness of it. It's like, it's a song that everyone likes. I think everyone likes. A lot of people like. That is hard for me to deal with is Because We Can. You know, that song, and that song is like, whoa, there's a lot of data coming at me.
Yeah.
Right. And you're right. Elected is also that way too.
Yeah, but in a way, I feel like you and I have talked more than once about the songs where there's like a tambourine that's just in your face the whole time, or bad hand claps.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a jumble to Elected. I could have probably enjoyed it more had the mix been a little more ear friendly.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm chalking that up to the twisted metal sweet tooth kind of like. Mm-hmm. I think he wants it to be really overwhelming, and if that's the case, bravo, you did it. But what strikes me is, as I could read through this song list, which my goal is not to go song by song at all, but No More Mr. Nice Guy, entirely different song. Generation Landslide sounds like My Generation, entirely different song. This band is kind of a chameleon, but they do these styles so damn well.
Yeah. I still think there's cohesion though.
There's cohesion and energy and power.
Yeah.
I would say it's pretty much mezzo forte and out almost this entire album, even the slow songs.
Yeah.
I mean, so dynamically speaking, it's not massive
Right.
the same way that like Zeppelin could use dynamics.
Yep.
They would do things there where you really just fall out into like, Robert Plant, like real, and then explode back in a noise track.
The closest they have is actually Unfinished Suite, when they bring it right down and start doing the James Bond thing.
That's pretty sweet.
They pull it down.
Yeah. There's songs on here. I could build an EP of absolute keepers.
Yep.
Of 4 or 5 songs, and then there's a couple I don't need to listen to again. Like I Love the Dead is not my jam.
Okay.
Necrophilia is not my jam, but it's not that. I can laugh at the topic. I can understand the shock rock value of it. Thanks for the term. Mm-hmm. This is where I get into these kind of like what Marilyn Manson became type singing, and I'm like, get this shit out of here.
Yeah.
It's just not my cup of tea, because I don't like pieces of shit in my cup of tea. As a fantastic performer once said.
My thing with I Love the Dead is I actually really like that song if it were 2 minutes shorter.
And maybe 10 BPM faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of just swung out. Look, if you're into that stuff, I think it's well executed. And I don't mean necrophilia per se, but like this like really dramatic, like, ooh, I'm doing this to be, it's just a little try hard, man.
Yeah.
That Sick Things is a better version of that for me.
Yeah.
It's kind of a jumbled musical mess at the end. I appreciate the instrumentation though.
Yep.
Bringing whole orchestral sections. It's clear that they had access to players. It's clear they had a decent budget. So I celebrate all of this. I guess what I'm saying is this album is not skip proof in my mind. But if you put this album on, I would listen to it from 1 till 6. No, I wouldn't. I'd probably skip Unfinished Suite just because I don't like the sound of the drill. I do appreciate the journey of Unfinished Suite. I think I got to this a little earlier, but it's actually using the majors and the minors and the sound effects and the glorious ending.
Yeah.
It's truly going through either a cavity filling or, dare I say, a root canal. It might be that.
Yeah.
So props. If the only copy of it was songs 1 through 6, I wouldn't skip number 5. However, I would take 1 through 4 any day of the week. Mm-hmm. I really enjoy the styles. I really enjoy the musicianship. I don't so much mind Alice Cooper's singing, which strikes me as something I never thought I'd say.
Yeah, he's not an amazing singer.
Oh, no, but neither is Bowie.
Right.
Like, and I also don't like him.
I got one of his albums for you, too.
I'm sure. And look, I'm looking forward to hearing it because I do think it'll shine a new light on my perspective of these generations that I was not here for, and I know they're like lauded. I know people love this shit.
Yeah.
I want to be part of it too.
Yeah.
What's the old Mark Maron thing? I want to know Beefheart. It's like that.
Yeah. And this album actually did pretty well. I mean, it went platinum. So, which is respectable.
Yeah, No More than Mr. Nice Guy is by far and away the leader on the Spotify numbers at 78, almost 79 million, not billion, streams.
Correct.
With the next closest being 8.8 million at $1 Billion Babies. So like, No More Mr. Nice Guy really hit. And I think it's a great song.
It is, and it's used for other stuff. Like I mentioned, it's used in PSAs. It's
Yeah, I'm about to say a commercial success is a commercial success.
Yep.
Overall, I think this would be a really cool piece of vinyl for me to own. Mm-hmm. I think, that's the format I would want it in. Mm-hmm. I think it would be really fun to put on at a party.
Yeah.
Probably not while I'm cooking dinner, Mm-hmm. But there's a place for this in my life, and I think if I listened to this 6 more times, I would grow more fond of it. Mm-hmm. There's more for me to discover here.
I think there is. This was not an immediate love for me. The first time it was introduced to me, it was like, I was kind of with you. Like, Alice Cooper's voice isn't amazing. I was hopeful that he was going to be more horrific.
Yeah, see, that's where you and I go, 2 different ways.
Yeah.
I'm forgiving of a not great singer if the energy's there. And I will say, the energy, the persona is there in spades. Mm-hmm. I just don't happen to chase that prototype of persona.
Yeah, just me as like a horror fan.
I don't like horror movies.
Yeah.
I don't like any of that. I don't like shock scaring, like jump scares.
Yeah.
You love that stuff, man.
Yeah, so I was hoping that this would be, not that this isn't dark, there's some dark stuff on here for sure, but there's also major chords that are supporting some of it in certain cases.
Which is my favorite part of it. I think that the instrumentation gets the arrangements get like an 8.5 to 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like
Posthumously,
right now,
like
out of
later
me.
on, I've grown to that. That's why I gave it to you. Right.
At their best, this turns into like stuff where it meets my book is like, it starts to sound like some of my favorite stuff by like Yes and ELP. And like when you look at like the level of musicianship back there, that's where it ties in. This is rock going on fusion rock,
right?
In my mind, is that fair?
Yeah, I mean it's ambitious that way because of the instrumentation, the multiple like song like. Unfinished Suite is spelled SWEET, but it really is it's a suite.
It's a suite in the classical sense.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's a nice little double entendre. I never thought I'd play on words. Yeah. Overall, I this is a great way to kick off this whole party, man. Thank you for suggesting this to me.
Yeah, and hey, even with Marianne, a little twist at the end.
Indeed.
Right? So before everyone was very comfortable with LGBTQ, Marianne, I thought you were my man.
So good.
And it's a really pretty song.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And that didn't stop me. That made me giggle. Like, and so I'm in. Like, he wasn't doing that like carnival clowns.
No.
It was the earnest.
It's very earnest.
It was good comedy.
Yep.
With the best singing he does on the album, in my personal opinion.
It is.
All right. Well, I'm all about keeping these short and sweet. Any thoughts, SUITE? Any thoughts before we log off?
No, I'm glad you enjoyed it. It sounds like you would enjoy this on vinyl. So from that perspective,
it's this is fun because it gives me something to keep my eyes open for when at a record store. Mm-hmm. And I won't soon forget this has this great blue-green album cover. That'll stand out.
Yeah, snakeskin wallet.
Yep. Oh, look at that.
Yep.
I much preferred over a ham wallet.
Yep.
All right, bud. We hope you enjoyed our piece of side content here, otherwise known as
Sidetrax.
And we have a fun one we're going to tee Dan up for next week.
Talk to you later.
Bye. Backward Speeds Podcast is a Tuna-Wood production recorded live at Thought Shack Studios in Halethorpe, Maryland.
If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us at Backward Speeds Podcast on most platforms.
Share the love, and we'll see you next week for another deep dive into the next album on Rolling Stone Magazine's Top 500 list. Until then, salt your melons.